Alright, so this next section in Chapter 11 is dealing with the registry and actually going through and improving the performance of your computer. Okay, so first looking at the registry, basically the registry is like it's a database of settings and configurations for within Windows. Okay, even though it is a database, the registry editor displays it in folder and subfolder form, just to make it a little bit easier for us to manipulate and manage. That being said, the registry is still one of those areas that you want to proceed with extreme caution because there really isn't any way easier to just completely, trash your computer as it is to just mess with the registry. Okay, so the registry is going to contain configurations for anything like the users, Windows in general, software applications, hardware, anything like that. Okay, as soon as your computer boots up, the registry is loaded into Windows, and then it's utilized throughout the rest of the time that it's booted up. Registry is one of those things that is proprietary to Windows. It is not used in any other operating system. Okay, so with the registry, it's broken up into 5 categories known as hives. And each hive is going to have its own specific function or area that it works with. Okay, so in each of those hives, they're going to have subfolders known as subkeys, and then those subkeys are going to have keys or values that are assigned to them in order to store the configuration that's needed. Okay, so here are the here's the way the registry is laid out. Okay, here are the 5 hives right here. Okay, so you have HKey current user, which is going to be used for the user that is currently logged into the computer. Okay, it's going to have all their configurations, all their settings, and everything like that. Then you have HKey users, which is going to be a list of all the users that have logged on to that computer. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's what the username is or anything like that. If you've got, say Bob is on this computer, and then Bob leaves the company, and another person starts with the name of Bob. Even though they have the same username, it'll have different user IDs assigned to them, and that's stored here under HKey users. Then you have HKey local machine, which is going to contain all the information about this machine itself. Okay, usually it's going to have the hardware information, it's going to have some software information, it's kind of a combination of both. Okay, but it's going to be specific to this computer. Okay, then you have HKey current config. Okay, this is basically going to be what hardware profile you're using. Okay, this is extremely useful with laptops because they do have multiple hardware profiles. Okay, you may have a profile to where you're out in the field and you're running just your laptop and the ports on your laptop. And then another hardware profile maybe when you come into the office and you plug into a docking station or something like that, and you have additional ports that are on that docking station. That's a completely different hardware profile. Okay, so this is where your hardware profiles are going to be located, is under this current config. And then finally, the HKey class's root is going to be the location that ties all the file extensions with the program that it's associated with. Okay, so this is where the .doc will be associated to Microsoft Word. The .pdf will be associated with Adobe, that kind of stuff. And if you open this up, you'll actually see that it has hundreds of those file extensions to actually help you or help the computer organize and see what applications need to be used. Okay, and you can see each one of these hives is going to have subkeys, and then those subkeys will have additional subkeys. And basically you can just think of these as folders. Okay, so you got folders, subfolders, and then in those subfolders are going to be independent values as well. Okay, so let's see. This is just the relationship between the registry and the hives. So we'll just kind of skip over that. We've already talked about these, so there's no reason to rehash those. Okay, so a couple things to keep in mind when you're messing in the registry. One, if you see that you're going to make any changes whatsoever, make sure you back up the registry. Okay, there is a backup already in place, but it's not updated as often as you may need. So you want to back up the entire registry before you do any type of editing at all. Now, if you're messing with an individual key, you can also create a backup of that key as well. Okay, so if you want to open up Registry Editor, you just go to Start, or you go to the search bar and type in the regedit.exe right here. Okay, that's going to be the GUI interface for the registry editor. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like, and there's an image of this on the next slide as well. But you can see the hives right here. So if I wanted to back up an individual key, okay, first you can see this is the HK classes root. So you can see all the different file extensions that are available there. Okay, so there's all kinds. Okay, let's say I wanted to go under local machine, software, Microsoft. Let's see, we'll go to Office. We'll just go here. Let's say we wanted to back up just this key. I would select that key right here and then just go to File, Export. Okay, basically you can replace this export with save. Okay, so when you click export, it's actually going to let you choose. Let's just say it's called backup of Office key. Okay, and you click save. Now if I go and look at that location under documents, I just got to find it here. There it is right there. That's the icon for registry right here. So you can actually, all you have to do to implement this is just double click it. When you double click it, it's going to pop up with this error message or warning message saying that what you're fixing to do is going to add to the registry, it's going to alter the registry. So if you want to continue, click yes. When you do that, it's going to tell you all those values were loaded in. Okay, well, we know that all that was just replacing a key that's already there. So it wasn't any big deal. Now, if I need to back up the entire registry, I just come back here and I click on Computer. Then I go to File, Export, do the same thing. Let's just call this Registry Full Backup. Click Save. This one's going to take a little bit more time because it's backing up everything. Okay, but then if for some reason something happens when you're going through and altering the registry, you can then just go ahead and double click on that full backup and it will restore the entire registry back to the way it was. Okay, so it's a good idea to do that anytime you're going to be altering the registry at all. Okay, so to change a key, it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is just go in here, select the key that you want, double click on it, and then you can put a value in here. Okay, again, be extremely careful when you're doing this because the registry is very convoluted in the way it works. So sometimes you may be thinking that you're making this change, but you're actually making a change for something else. But that being said, this is a good way that you can also make individual changes on a local machine if you wanted to. If you don't like the name Recycle Bin, you can go in there and change it to trash or something like that through the registry editor. So you can do little stuff like that as well. Okay, so looking at the display settings, there's a couple different settings that you can adjust within your video card depending on what type of card you have set up. Okay, so you can adjust the color depth by calibrating the color. You can adjust the resolution. Okay, the resolution is essentially going to change how many pixels are on your screen. So to kind of indicate what I'm talking about, here's, we'll go back to our trusty old Paint application. Let's say this is our monitor. Okay, so within this monitor, it has little dots. Okay, these dots on your monitor are going to be pixels. Okay, so as you can kind of gather, the more pixels you have, the sharper the image. Okay, but also the smaller it makes everything. So that's your resolution. Okay, when you change your resolution, for example, if you do 800 by 600, your icons and everything like that are going to be huge because you're using less pixels. When you then go back and adjust it to 1200 by 600, you're using many more pixels, so everything's going to shrink down and be smaller. It's also going to make a difference when you're dealing with images and pictures, because it's going to be a whole lot sharper depending on what kind of resolution you use. Okay. Okay, you can also go in and change the refresh rate. Okay, the refresh rate is basically how often the pixels on that screen are repainted. Okay, so I guess I should have left up that paint icon on here, or image up here, but essentially, again, we have pixels, and they refresh rates generally start top left. Okay, and what they do, what the old monitors used to do, is they would paint one row and then go through and paint the entire screen and come back and paint, I'm sorry, one column, and then come back and paint one row and do the same thing. Okay, so how fast it did that was called the refresh rate. Okay, now with CRTs and LEDs, it's a little bit different. Instead of repainting the entire screen, they go through and only change the area that is changed. So if I'm down here making changes to my notification area, and that's the only thing that's changing, it's only going to come back and repaint this area right here. Okay, so it's a whole lot more effective and efficient. But you can go through and change the refresh rate to see how often you want it to repaint. You can also go through and set up a dual monitor as well. Dual monitor will allow you to either duplicate the screen, or you can actually go in and set up extended display. Okay, so that will allow you to basically share or have two monitors and have two desktops. So one you can have like your email up on, the other one you can have the Word document you're working on, or something like that. Makes it extremely nice whenever you're dealing with comparing data or copying data over or something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you real quick. If you right click, these are some of the options available. Now again, this is Windows 7, but Windows 8 is going to be extremely similar, if not exactly the same. So this is where you could go in and adjust the resolution right here. Okay, so you can dial it down, everything. Notice I have my screen set up with dual display, and I've got it set up to extend the desktops. Okay, if I wanted to duplicate them, they're going to show the exact same thing on both screens. Okay, and I can choose which desktop I want, or where I want the desktop. I can also choose, when I do extended, I can choose which one I want to make the main monitor, meaning I want my start menu and everything else on this one. Okay, and like it says here, this is my current display. If I want to switch it, if I want my start menu on this monitor, then I just click it over here. Okay, so this is all the different areas you can change. If you go to advanced settings here, this is where you could go in and you can change the refresh rate, and it depends on the monitor as well as the video card on what kind of refresh rate you can deal with. You can also go in here and change the color as well. Okay, so this is just some of the settings. Now each video card and each monitor may have different settings that you can go in and alter. Some are going to be a little more advanced than others.